get us kind of warmed up, I was wondering, I have just kind of a general question, and that is, has there ever been a time when you were waiting in anticipation for something?
Nope.
So what, tell us. Are you waiting? Well, I think we all know what that's like. I mean, we've had those times in our lives. I want us to talk about one of Jesus and the stories that Jesus told. We kind of have our cultural favorites, our stories, our parables that we typically come back to. What would you say are our cultural favorite parables? Does that make sense? Some of you are looking at me like, what is he talking about? Okay,
which? The one that I relate to me the most, and that's prodigal son/daughter.
Prodigal child.
Yes.
Yes. And that, I would say that would be one of our cultural favorites. I mean, that comes up again. I mean, that language of prodigal son is in our everyday language too. You hear that about the prodigal returning home. Any others that you can think of? The Good Samaritan. Yeah, oh yeah, that's another one that you hear about. You read the headline, "Good Samaritan saves," whatever. So yeah, that would be one. Well, there's one that this one that we're going to talk about tonight was a very popular parable in the Middle Ages. You think about their stained glass windows at cathedrals, and those were basically, when you have an illiterate population, your stained glass windows, you only had so many, and so you wanted, what you chose to put on those, you probably weight very heavily, because this is how people are going to read the Bible. Well, this story was oftentimes, especially in the areas of Germany and France, was is in the stained glass windows, or the architecture, the sculptures in the walls and things. And so we're going to talk about this. So we're going to talk about the parable of the 10 virgins. So just a kind of a reminder as we talk about story, without rehashing everything. Typically today we try to think of everything in doctrines and compartments and outlines and things, but in the world that Jesus lived in, there were a lot of stories. Think about the Old Testament, lots of stories. And so stories, the problematic thing about stories is they don't give you all the answers. But they can give you the answers, and the information in them changes as we change and change with us. And so we're going to read this, and then the question will be, I'll go and tell you in advance, what do you see? Okay? So let's go to Matthew chapter 25. And this is, I'll tell you, it kind of falls in there's a section in Matthew 24. It's called the Olivet Discourse, the big fancy name for the discussion they had on the Mount of Olives. And they talk about these things about the end times, and especially the second coming. And so these are some of these themes here. And so we want to read Matthew 25, verses 1 through 13. Would somebody be willing to read that?
I want to be able to see what I'm saying. The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish took no oil for their lamps, but the other 5 were wise enough to take along extra oil. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all lay down and slept. At midnight they were roused by a shout, "Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and welcome him." All the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then 5 foolish ones asked the others, Please give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out." But the others replied, "We don't have enough for all of us. Go to the shop and buy some for yourselves." But while they were gone to the buy-all, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, the other 5 bridesmaids returned. They stood outside, calling, "Sir, open the door for us." But he called back, "I don't know you. So stay away and be prepared, because you do not know the day or the hour of my return."
So I wonder, why was this story so popular in the Middle Ages, you know? So what do you see? I mean, this is a fairly familiar parable of Jesus. But what do you see? Questions you have, maybe something, you know, something that...
Another question I was having is, you can't have other people get prepared?
Yeah, why didn't the 5 wise or prepared bridesmaids or virgins, why didn't they share their oil? You know, or help them say, "Hey, don't forget, take extra oil." You know, so.
That's always popular. Because I think you should do it.
Yeah. What else? What do you see?
I think they chose it in the Middle Ages because it's a good one to put people under condemnation.
Okay, maybe so.
What do you do?
Yeah. Well, sir. I mean, yeah. It definitely. It's easy to put. Well, don't be the unwise virgin or bridesmaid, because you'll get left out of the wedding feast. So that's always easy, you know, easy to push that button.
I wonder too if,
Can everybody hear? I can pass this around.
you know, life was tough in the Middle Ages unless you were the very few at the top. And even they didn't live all that long, but they probably were very tuned into the fact that any day they could die or possibly Jesus could come. And, you know, they were more cognizant maybe because life was a struggle, life was hard. And I don't know, maybe that would be in the forefront of their head.
I got a question I've never researched. Was there a lot of preaching about Jesus coming in the Middle Ages more so than...
That's a good question. I don't know. Because you mentioned this, and then you asked this question. The big fancy word for the night is parousia. Jake? No, parousia. That's the big fancy word for the second coming. The coming back. And so, actually, it literally means, I think, presence or something like that. But there was definitely this sentiment, especially in Matthew 24. You kind of get this idea that Jesus is telling these guys, "Hey, it's not going to be long. I'm going to be back, and you're probably still going to be around." But then, as it started to get longer and longer, it's like, well, hey, what's going on here? I thought he said he's going to come back. And so you can really see how a story like this can maybe gain weight. Now, you asked about the Middle Ages. I don't know, but you can see how this would gain weight where they're saying, "Hey, don't lose faith here. Stay committed. Be ready. Be waiting in anticipation. He's coming again." Anything else that you see, Jake?
Well, I just think, they say like throughout history, and especially like apocalyptic literature and Judaism, and then also in Christianity, anytime there's a hard time, like where things are really difficult, you always see this, like kind of like this hope. It always comes out that everything's so difficult, so that's why they have all these different symbols and these things that remind them either to hold out, stay strong, while there's persecution or while things are difficult. So I think that's really legitimate. I can see that. I mean, I haven't researched it, but I can see how that would make sense.
Yeah, and it also makes sense that in our culture, one of the wild affluence and